Governance sounds pretty boring, but it's something that taxpayers should expect from the board of a public agency like CAT, also known as the Hood River Valley Transportation District. The board should be providing oversight over major operations and spending, executive hiring decisions, strategic planning, and goal setting. So far, the board has presided over one of the costliest per-ride transit agencies in the country, authorized 1-year, $100,000 plus transition contract for their outgoing executive director, and ignored their own bylaws and Oregon open meeting rules when creating a variety of committees to make plans for that transition. So how'd they do with their most recent committee decision in hiring a replacement for outgoing executive director Patty Fink? A hasty hiring process brought the district John Ando, who began employment as a CAT employee making more than $116,000 a year, working alongside current executive director Patty Fink, who will pull in over $100,000 in pay, bonus, and benefits at the same time. Mr. Ando's job description in Hood River calls for him to get his $9,689 monthly salary by working Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., along with some weekends or late nights if there are emergencies. But at the same time Mr. Ando joined CAT in May, he also accepted a part-time job with the city of Burlington, North Carolina, as interim transit manager. He has continued his work with the city of Escalon, California as a transit coordinator, and still seems to hold a contract job with the city of Quartzsite, Arizona. Then, sometime in June, he accepted a job with Hawaii Transit as interim transit administrator, where a public notice on July 2nd was already listing him as the agency contact for bus purchases. While getting his monthly salary of $9,689 from Hood River, the Hawaii Tribune-Herald reported on August 1st that Mr. Ando had, quote, hit the ground running in applying for grants, implementing actions of the Transit and Transportation Master Plan, launching marketing programs, building relationships, continuing to get buses rebuilt, and improving work quality at the Mass Transit Agency, end quote. Did the CAT board authorize Mr. Ando to hold multiple other jobs when he would be working during the same hours he's paid to learn and then manage the CAT system? If so, how is that a sound decision? In the case of outgoing director Patty Fink, a clause in her contract requires her to seek permission from the board before accepting other paid work. This goes way beyond moonlighting. Mr. Ando works for other agencies during the time he's paid to work on Hood River County transit issues. If the role of executive director for CAT can be done in only a few hours a week, in between the time Mr. Ando devotes to his other 4 jobs, why is the board paying him, or anyone, a full-time salary? The CAT board must answer these questions at their next meeting, share copies of the resume they were provided with when they hired him, and post a copy of Mr. Ando's contract detailing his exact responsibilities. Meanwhile, we're betting that Mr. Ando's stint here will be among his shorter ones. Oregon hasn't agreed with him in the past. He left his role as executive director for the Columbia County Rider after only 4 months back in 2016, when he was simultaneously working for a transit agency in Austin, Texas. He's held at least 20 transit roles since 2000, with frequent occurrences of simultaneous jobs. Now, how did he make it through the interview process with CAT? The CAT board described how much, or little, they asked the candidates they interviewed.
For the interview we're doing now have been limited to about 4 or 5 questions. And I think that's unless you want to go for a very long interview, that's probably a good amount.
4 or 5 questions for each candidate? And being worried about a candidate having a long interview? Exploring a candidate's background and experience through a thorough interview and background review is not unreasonable. It's both thorough good governance and a basic expectation for a 6-figure salary heading up a publicly funded agency, isn't it? We doubt that with only a few questions being asked that anyone asked hard questions about the problems that have come up in Mr. Ando's past experiences, including claims about his level of experience, the accusation of creating a hostile work environment, multiple service rollouts characterized as disorganized or chaos. While transit agencies frequently have to assess routes, and fare structures, or react to declining ridership, the way in which those changes are implemented matter.
Transportation Concept's one-year agreement with the Yuma County Intergovernmental Public Transportation Authority is expiring soon, but the company says it won't be taking part in the bid for the new 3-year contract. The company's chief operating officer told the YSIPTA board that the decision is due to, quote, ongoing and constant harassment, end quote, by the authority's transit director, John Ando. Unionized drivers and mechanics of Transportation Concepts passed a no-confidence vote against Ando in November, and in December, a union presented a formal statement to the YSIPTA board alleging Ando created a hostile work environment.
We also doubt that the hiring committee attempted to resolve educational discrepancies and changes over the years as Mr. Ando moved from city to city and job to job. For example, the Bachelor of Science in Environmental Studies from De Anza College that he claimed on an application in California 11 years ago has morphed into a single line saying, also studied environmental studies at De Anza College. The change makes some sense if one knows that De Anza College is a community school that doesn't offer a Bachelor of Science in any field. Our online blog will provide more of the discrepancies between Mr. Ando's own self-described written statements of his background and experience and what at least his online current resume now shows. When we receive a copy of the resume he provided to Kat and the Kat contract, we'll see what else may have changed and share those documents. We think Kat owes the people of Hood River County an explanation of how Mr. Ando's contract allows him to work at other transit agencies while working at Kat. We'd like to know whether his salary is being prorated during the hours he spends elsewhere and why any of that is a good idea. We further suggest that when another hiring committee is formed, that they seek some guidance on how to vet and interview high-level candidates. It's another part of what's known as good governance. By the way, shortly after completing the initial part of our recording, we learned that Mr. Ando had been actually in Hawaii on August 4th, providing testimony at the Hawaii County Transit Agency. Listen here for how he's doing.
Ms. Leroy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Ando, for being here. Just got into office, and here you are before the council introducing a bill to add what I'm seeing is $8 million. Thank you so much for going to get that money. Mr. Ando, based on this and that vision, how quickly do you think we can begin to transition out of the aging fleet that we have and get some of these assets?
I'm working on a fleet replacement plan as we speak that will spell out with all of the grants that we receive how we're going to strategically replace those buses. And I'm also drafting that RFP as we speak, hoping to have all this done by September. I'm working fairly aggressive, as you can see, but I know the desperate need that we need to get out of this situation that we're in.
Great. Thank you for that. And then maybe pushing you a little harder when we bring you before the council on August 17th, maybe you could share some of that with us.
I'll be happy to do so.
Great. Thank you, Chair. I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Leroy. Mr. Richards.
It's really exciting for the County of Hawaii that Mr. Ando is working so hard on new bus purchases, the transit master plan, and all those details that he'll have ready for the council by August 17th. He also has other information that he's agreed to provide for them by September. The only question, I guess, that's left is, what about Hood River County? Aren't we paying him $9,689 a month for something? His undivided attention, perhaps? Let's get the answers from the CAT board about why this is happening.